Hey, this is Ray here from Gamma Ray Crafts. So tonight I'm doing a little bit of experimenting. This is my second video I'm recording tonight with the DecoArt Satin Enamel paint. A lot of people in the different pouring groups have been using this to get this really kind of billowy cell effect without having to use any silicone. And I've been wanting to use it, and it's been out of stock at like every store around me, and I finally got my hands on a container of it. I'm very excited. So tonight's kind of been a bit of experimentation and seeing how much of this I need to mix in with my various paints to get that really nice billowy effect. The nice thing about not using silicone is it's going to make it much easier to prepare my paintings at the end to put a finish on them. Plus, it's just a really nice effect. So I have pretty much as big of a canvas as this workspace will go for, which is a 16 by 20. It is a gallery wrapped canvas, which means that the canvas has gone all the way. Instead of it being stapled here in the back, it actually has a separate piece of wood here that's wrapped around, and so the edge of the canvas is hidden between these two pieces of wood. Which is just a lot more professional looking type of canvas. And I've already gone on the back, like this one, I've gone and used my painter's tape to tape the back. I've also added thumbtacks to the corners to keep it up away from the table. So for this painting, I'm changing up the colors a little bit from the first one. I still have my base white, which is just titanium white, 1 part white acrylic to 3 parts Floetrol and a little bit of water for my base coat. Then I have my second white, which is that same basic titanium white plus the satin enamel. On the earlier video I did about 25% satin enamel. This one I've gotten it closer to about 40% satin enamel, just trying to get a little bit more of that cloud effect. One thing I'm being a little hesitant about is in some of the videos people have mentioned that when they use more of the enamel is they've sometimes gotten cracking, so I'm hoping not to use too much and get run into that. I'm also using Prussian blue, dioxine purple, which is one of my favorites, Payne's gray, and this purple red from Premier Acrylic Colors, which is the AC Moore brand paints. It's just a really nice kind of berry pink color. Okay, so I get my gloves back on here before I start getting paint everywhere. So one thing I'm doing is this is so it's about a 16 by 20 canvas. By my calculations, I'll probably want a total of around 12 ounces of paint, 10 to 12 ounces of paint. But that's going to include my base coat, especially since I'm planning on leaving some negative space, so leaving some white at one end of the canvas. So I'm planning on putting actually about 8 ounces of actual colored paint into the pour. So first thing I'm going to do is just get, this is my base white that I use on most of my pours, which doesn't have any silicone in it, and it's a little bit thinner usually than my other colors. And I'm just gonna let that smooth that out. I'm not worrying about the edges now. The edges that end up showing white, I go back at the end after I finish tilting and touch those up with some more white paint. But what this is going to let me do is it's going to let that paint, when I put it on there, stretch a lot easier over the canvas, so that I don't disrupt any cells that are going to pop up from that enamel. Okay. So I planned to do this, of course, before I put the white paint on, but I didn't. So I'm just gonna go ahead and stick it right in there, and the bottom of the cup will get a little dirty. Just so that you can see it and I don't do it off canvas, or off camera. I put a little bit of just my regular white in the bottom of the cup. Now, if you haven't watched it yet, the Gina DeLuca videos using the enamel paint have been what I've been watching, and so far I have found those to be really helpful. And they're really interesting, talking about some of the ratios and some of the issues with cracking and how to avoid some of that. So I really recommend also watching her videos as you're experimenting with this type of paint. There are a few others off the top of my head. The biggest thing is just to look up acrylic pour satin enamel, and you'll find a lot of really interesting videos of various artists kind of doing different things in different colors and different types of pour styles with this paint. And each one is just really has a different look and a different effect, which is interesting to see. So what I'm just doing is I'm layering my colors, and I'm leaving fairly thick layers. Like, I'm only planning on putting 2 to 3 layers total of all the colors in my cup. And then every 2 or 3 layers of color, I'm adding more of that white with the enamel. I'm trying to be not super gentle with the layers, but a little gentle with the layers so that we don't get too much mixing in the cup here. And I'm making sure I leave myself a little bit of white to put it at the very, very top. I'm just gonna go with the flow on that. A little extra pink on the canvas to start with. The Payne's gray. Last of the blue. And go ahead. Drop the white in from a little bit higher. It's okay, I'm the white mixing in just to kind of encourage some of that cells that's going to be going on with that white enamel. Okay, I think that's it. And I think I actually came out just about perfect with 8 ounces of paint. White paint on the bottom of my cup. We'll have to just live with that. Smooth that out. Okay, my plan is to do, it's kind of a variation between a ring pour and a straight pour. I've seen it called a wing pour, where you just, instead of going in little circles, you go back and forth, and it makes this really neat kind of, I think they call it a wing pour because it kind of almost look like bird's wings, so it almost looks like feathers when you stretch it out. That's kind of one of my favorite pour styles. I've seen some of these enamel pours that look really great with that pour. So that's my plan here, and that's where we're going. And I do have a lot of dark colors, but here we go with some of the brighters. We're just going back and forth in that same spot. Trying not to travel too much. My natural tendency is always to drift with these, but that's okay because I really love the effect I get. When I lift the cup, you'll see this area that gets those wings, or the feather effect. It's underneath my cup in my hand at the moment, but give me just a moment. There we go. This is what I really love right there with that pour type, are these kind of feathers. So my plan going into this was to leave a fair bit of white space, actually quite a bit of white space at this end of the painting, and then to get the wispy feathers on this end, and to stretch everything off and fill up this half of the, or probably 2/3 of the canvas. Now of course with that enamel in there, I'm expecting the white to come up and create and probably disrupt a lot of what's normally these feathers, or it might enhance them. It's going to be interesting seeing, because that's enamel paint is a bit of a wild card being thrown into the pour here. So I'm going to start stretching and speed up the video. We'll catch you in a few minutes. Okay. Well, there's no way I can be unhappy with that. So, yeah, that did pretty much what I was hoping for. It's got these really soft, pillowy ridges all in here. Just these really lovely stratas of color. I'm very, very pleased with this. This is actually, because I have really space limitations, I don't do a lot of paintings above like 12 by 12 or 12 by 24, so it's kind of fun when I get, for me, a bigger canvas out and have it turn out the way that I want it to turn out. So I'm very pleased with this, and again, I'm gonna let this sit overnight, and well, probably for a day or two, and maybe tomorrow night or the following night. Once this is dry, I'll check back in and show you the final result. Thanks so much. Hey, so it's been about 2 days now, and I'm just checking back in on this piece. This was my second piece from Monday night, where I used the Satin enamel paint to try and create some of these billowy cells. And the painting is now pretty much dry, and I'm just checking in to see if anything shifted or any colors changed as it dried, and I think it stayed pretty true. I'm, again, really happy with how this piece came out. The biggest change you see, because this one was on canvas, is you get the canvas texture in the background. And any colors that seem like they may be dulled a little bit as they dried, when I do a varnish, those will pop right back out. I'm not sure yet, because this is a bigger piece, whether I'm going to do a resin on this one, or it might get something like the Liquitex gloss varnish instead. But I've got a few weeks. I'm going to let this one have its time to cure and finish settling before I worry about doing any sort of finishing work on it. So there we go. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and it gives you some inspiration for your own pieces. Have a good night.